When you come out publicly?
As a geek.
As a geek. Oh boy.
And tell us your story.
Yeah, I mean, am I a geek?
So that's an interesting question. When did I publicly come out as a geek?
I would say I've always been.
There was no period in time when I was a closet geek.
I don't feel like there was ever a big moment for me coming out publicly as a geek.
I guess I've always been a geek. Sometimes I closet myself and sometimes I don't.
I can't remember any specific time that I came out as one, but I did have a realization when I was elected president of the marching band. I'm like, oh, all right, this all makes sense. So I don't know that I necessarily came out, but maybe just discovered who I was in that way.
This is almost like my superhero origin story, maybe. I don't know. I played D&D for the first time in 6th grade and have an extremely vivid memory of sitting on the floor in my bedroom with the dungeon master was a kid I knew from upstairs in our apartment complex, and just having my mind completely blown by this game that involved imagining stuff that was not reflected in actual components. And look, we had no idea what we were doing, right? We didn't have a 20-sider, so we rolled 2d10 without any remote understanding that changed the probabilities of all that stuff. And it was, looking back on it, a ridiculous experience, but was also so much fun. And I became immediately obsessed with all of role-playing possibility and had decided within the year that I was going to be a game designer as a career. So from 6th or 7th grade, that has been such a part of my identity that it was never necessary for me to come out as a geek, because anybody who knew me from 6th grade was kind of aware of that, because I would kind of not shut up about it.
My big geeky moment, was back when I was, I was like 7 or 8 years old, and we had the Atari, because I'm a child of the '70s. But I remember I was sitting there playing Pitfall or something, and my brother came home, and my brother's about five years older than I am, and he came home and he started talking about this game that he played. And I was just like, and then I'm playing this, and I'm playing my game, and I'm listening to him talk. And he's talking about how he and these other people, they were in this town, and the town said that there was like a dragon in this cave, and then he had to go, and they were going to go find that dragon. And so then they went into the cave, and then they said that they ran into this evil wizard. And then the evil wizard had chased them down, but then they turned a trap on him, and so they were able to kill him. And then he had found this magic sword, and and so now he had a magic sword. And then when they finally did find the dragon was too tough, so they had to run away, and they ran back to the village. But now the dragon was going to come and get them, and they didn't know what they were going to do. And he said, "Well, we're going to play it again tomorrow. We'll find out." And I was like, wow, I'm like, just Pitfall Harry or whatever. And I was like, is that for ColecoVision? And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds like it's really in depth. I mean, is that for ColecoVision? And he's like, it's not a video game. He said, it's Dungeons and Dragons. And I immediately at that point, I knew whatever Dungeons and Dragons was, I had to play it. I had to own it.
There's been other times, I can talk about the process now without tearing up, but this has been tough. So my brother played Dungeons and Dragons ahead of me. He's 4 years older than me. And that was really cool. I wanted to see that and play it myself. And we made up games that we thought were like it when we were young and played those. And eventually, his book was left unattended, and I got it and started reading it and would sneak it back into his bookshelf at night. And I learned how to play, that way. And when we moved to Minnesota, I found other gamers because I think it's easier. Well, I was not in a parochial school for starters. So my parents eventually said, you're spending a lot of time at this and your grades are really suffering. And I think my grades would have been suffering anyway, but is what I tell them. But they said, you can't play D&D anymore in the house. And son of a bitch. That was tough. That was a really, really, really hard time in my life to be that way. And so when you asked about coming out, I was like, well, it was kind of like I was out, and then I had to go in and hide this thing I did for a long time, and I was very passionate about. And I continued role playing in college. I kind of rebooted in college, and there's a lot of really good designer games coming out, and I picked up the torch with those and continued to move forward. And then board games, like I'd been playing Cosmic since high school, and then Settlers came out when I was in college, and I was of course, blew the lid off of everything. Like that changed everything for everyone, and created this industry in America. But yeah, I was, because of that, I was very private about my gaming. If I identified other gamers through what they said, I would talk to them about it, but I would never talk about gaming with people because I didn't want it to get back to my parents because I was worried about that. And, eventually my mom was talking to my oldest brother, and he was like, you made an adult, and he's going to do what he wants to do. And so I think I had a lot more negative experience than most people. Most people, it's just gaming. It's not a big deal. And but then to be to my parents, this is not only is this part of my life, but I'm now going to try and make a living this way. And then the first time I told my family, I was like, I'm going to quit my job and do this full time. They laughed, and I was pretty upset about it. So. My father's a great guy, and just an amazing father, and just an amazing person. And I didn't want to talk to him, for a month after that happened. And my mom finally begged me to talk to him. And it was just, I was like, I've been working on this thing for so long at night, and then to finally say, we're gonna make. I don't know if I'm going to succeed. We have plenty of money and savings to fall back on if we don't, and I'm just going to go for it. And then to have my parents laugh at me about it, it was pretty upsetting. So.